Today we delve into the pages of a vintage magazine, specifically an article from the era dedicated to the exciting and popular hobby of slot car racing. Welcome to a journey back in time to 1969, a year marked by its unique cultural and technological landscape. In 1969, the world was undergoing a cultural transformation. Society was being shaped by the counterculture movement, civil rights activism, and the ongoing Vietnam War. Against this backdrop of change and upheaval, people sought diversions that allowed them to escape, if only momentarily, from the realities of the time. Slot car racing emerged as one such popular pastime. It embodied the spirit of innovation and excitement, providing miniature racing experience that captivated people of all ages. The 1960s witnessed a surge of interest in slot car racing, fueled by advancements in technology and an ever-growing array of intricate tracks and high-speed cars. This magazine article from 1969 reflects the enthusiasm and growing subculture surrounding slot car racing during this period. It delves into the intricacies of the hobby, discussing the latest developments in slot car technology, popular racing tracks, and even showcases the fervor of avid racers. Through the lens of this article, we can step into the shoes of enthusiasts of the time, gaining a deeper understanding of the joys and excitement that slot car racing brought to a generation seeking thrills and novelty amidst a changing world. Soooooo-krus, The Sound of Teenage Money by Leon Mandel. Somehow it always seems you have to go downstairs to get there. Although that is not strictly the fact, and once inside you are barraged by a peculiar adolescent cacophony, the whir of high-revving electric motors. Your senses are assaulted by a wall of opaque and noxious gases, a combination of ozone and cigarette smoke and intestinal effluvia, an atmosphere which would have put World War I trenches to shame. Often there is quite literally no place to stand. At very least it is time travel to another generation, and for an adult there is just the hint of the irrational and arbitrary menace of a teenage mob, cocky on its own turf, predictable only in its determination to be unpredictable. It is only later, the unease of introduction and the tribal initiation over, that it comes through clearly that here are to be found some exceptionally bright and pleasant youths. At first they would die rather than give you that impression. But if you want to meet the pros, that is the initiation you must go through, and to do it you go downstairs. If you want to meet the full-time factory drivers, the 16, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds who travel the circuit with as much disdain for the world as A.J. Foyt, that is where you go. And they are there, Howie Ersaner at 19, the coolest pro of them all, the Iceman, on full-time salary to Cobra. Dinah Rewind's Jerry Brady, Innocent Blue Eyes, Huckleberry Finn with a controller, winner of 11 straight money races. Minnie Rubin the court jester, Chris Vitucci at 26 giving a desperate last chance, Bob Emott, Captain Nice, Peter Von Ahrens, the perfect villain and working hard at the role, and the legendary John Soooooo-krus, team captain for Miura out of San Francisco, and rumored to benefit from an income of $50,000 a year. They're there, and so you go downstairs, wondering about reality and their cultural aberration which has taken 1/24th scale model cars and put them into a 1/24th scale world. And will your son say to you when he is 12, "It's been nice, but I just signed a $10,000 contract with the factory. My plane leaves for Mexico City in an hour. See you around." That's what happened to slot car racing while you had your head turned the other direction, and you don't know whether to laugh at the insecurity in the pimples or remark on the very real microcosm of the Can-Am. The touring pros are what's happened, and suddenly that movie about the teenage president isn't such a joke anymore, because how many people do you know who are making $50,000 a year? In the beginning it was like the hula hoop, a fad, a mildly diverting exercise. And then there was a period of incubation, and then a real boom. A Davy Crockett cap boom. A boom for the sake of boom, and every airline pilot with time on his hands, every sales manager, every lawyer, and every abortionist got in on it. Slot cars, like professional football teams, seem to need stadia beyond the split-level pine-finished recreation room of central Kansas. They needed 300-foot commercial tracks, convoluted, twisting, the incarnation of a tiny Nuremberging for tiny cars. Racing for the masses, the under-16 masses, although of course the fathers could go along and maybe encourage their sons a little. A little like stage mothers maybe, or the mother of the Olympic skater, the famous one. You remember her name from the time they was 10 or 8. It was manifest destiny, the boom in commercial slot car tracks. You had to call to make a reservation for half hour on a track in Brooklyn. There was a time there when, at least according to legend, the tracks were making 2,000 a day and sell any kind of micro equipment made. The king of the salesmen was Oscar Kovaleski, hill climb driver, almost perpetual SCCA finalist in the American Road Race of Champions. Oscar rented his cars for that one. Club governor, firmly settled in the Himalayan heights of amateur sports car racing policy and perpetrator of an enormous catalog of model cars and model car parts, including a dyno for slot cars. Still, Kovaleski and partner Bob McLeod, who also published Model Car magazine, were a sober influence on the South Sea bubble of the fad in miniatures. They wrote rules for races, promoted them, and tried to stabilize the industry, which of course they couldn't do. No more than the man who wanted to abolish bronze baby shoes hanging from car mirrors. No more than the zealots who decided single-handed to put an end to the opium trade. Inevitably, the slot car boom collapsed. Parlors across the country closed doors like Boston Gentility in the face of Irish applicants. The airline pilots went back to selling insurance or sitting poolside with girls a third their age in those get-together, sleek apartment buildings. The doctors and the lawyers and the abortionists, red eyes, their savings gone, reverted to their legitimate trades. Sad men who thought they knew all about the post-war baby boom now reached adolescence and who found out they didn't know it all. Some of the storefronts were converted into campaign headquarters, when there were campaigns to headquarter. Some sat quiet, unoccupied, with no future, the paint chipping, the brave signs, checkered flag raceway, fading into a miasma of dirt and memories, and the disillusionment of their owners. That's the way it always is, and that's the way it was with Great Slot Car Boom. The days of the 6-hour enduros with 1/32nd scale cars with lights on boards. After 3 hours, we turn off the lights, and you better be able to see where you're going. Of the quick kick cars, the Cox Chaparral, the Porsche 906s were over. The stale stink of 13-year-old sweat went with the American mags and the 55 Chevys back to the drive-ins or the beaches. It was over. It had ended as suddenly as it began, except not quite. The tough ones stayed on. The bright ones continued. Luis Del Rosario sought out an industrial designer from northern New Jersey, quit his job as national sales manager for a trucking outfit, and put together Elmsford Raceway, a quiet, tasteful emporium in Westchester County, New York. Beneath a bowling alley, you still had to go down. And PTA mothers, junior league mothers, terribly busy artist-type mothers were just delighted to have a clean, decent place to leave the 10-year-old they don't know how to cope with anyway. What they didn't know then and don't know now is that the survivors have become hardcore revolutionaries. Survivors generally do. Kit cars, $6.95, put it together yourself, have almost disappeared, and in their place are the components for the scratch-built racers, brass platform chassis, Elfin or Lotus 40 bodies, Mura and Cobra motors and cars. Into the world of the slot car racers come the specialist manufacturer, and with him an emphasis on races and competition. No longer an afternoon of idle whirring around a track, and with them, there come the pros. The Cobra race at Elmsford was going to draw 150 entries and ended up with about 70. Still enough to spend all day qualifying, running endless consolation races, the struggle to move up from each to the main, and a chance at the pros from California and Texas and Atlanta, and maybe, just maybe, a factory ride. Sub teens up to the line under the stern gaze of the race director for a hot lap. First make the cut, then try for a sit-out so you only have to run the main. Next week it's Nutley, New Jersey, and the Arco Champion race, and the track's better there for the pros, smoother and quicker. You don't launch on the straight and demolish your car. Next week they'll go to the Holiday Inn in East Orange, on Wednesday maybe, and build new cars and go down to Nutley Raceway for time on the American Blue track. Elmsford, it's all complaints. They talk about the track and the race in Elmsford, but they barely mention Jerry Brady, who started here and is straight, and that's what they really soar about. Bob Emote breaks in a Consi. He launches, his car flying into a wall and out for the night. Dave Grant from Costa Mesa has bad luck. So does Phil Rubin, a teammate of John Soooooo-krus on the Muro team. So in the main, it's Soooooo-krus and Brady and scholarly Wayne Williams and the Iceman and track owner Del Rosario. Del Rosario coughs, he breaks his racer. Before the start, Jerry Brady trims his body. Illegal, and he knows it. And so he's penalized a lap, but he figured nobody's going to see. He's got his back turned to the race director, and anyway, everybody's busy gooping the track with whatever magic clixer they've concluded will make the 400-mile-per-hour scale car stick best. STP mostly. Is Granatelli everywhere? The start is delayed because quietly the race director is told Soooooo-krus is sick to his stomach. Brady's win streak is snapped by Wayne Williams and by 1 lap. It is 1 a.m. and black and cold outside, but it's Saturday night and tomorrow is the USGP, and so everyone is on his way to the Glen. Real racers, 124th to 1-1. There is a one-way current of understanding and envy. And there is time enough for East Orange a week away. Nutley was a very serious business. Nutley Model Car Raceway and Family Hobby Center advertised Sano plastic kits and Sano-powered boats, but drew twice the number of entries as Elmsford. Nutley was a whiff of the old parlor, owned and operated by Mike Tango, whose parents dispensed meatball sandwiches, 2 meatballs per sandwich to the hungry racers during qualifying. Geeks, said Von Ahrens, the disdainful villain, and everyone waited for the longest Saturday in the world until the geeks either qualified, made the cut, or loaded it on the trailer, vividly ornamented in decaled wooden boxes, and went home. Bob Keane was there, the Keith Duckworth of slot car racing, who works for IBM during the day and tends to his profitable custom motor rewinding at night. We get, 173,000 RPM free loaded on the tack out of these motors, maybe 70,000 RPM under load, he says. But there's no quality control. They don't live. Dutton Racing Team, the shirts say on the back, Monaco Raceways, Nutley Raceways, Closter Place Sports Center, and the place is teeming, milling with constantly circulating teenagers with the intense purpose of being there, and once there, not sure of where to be. As at Elmsford, the word is out. Soooooo-krus is coming. No communication network is so deadly efficient as the teenager grapevine. They somehow seem to know. Magic? And swinging downstairs from the great parking lot in the back he comes. The toughest pro in the country, long hair and 3/4 length curls, sunglasses with replica daisies on their frames, a menthol cigarette dangling from the middle of his mouth. Soooooo-krus is here, and the sea of pimples parts for him. It does not part for a chunky man in a tan windbreaker which says Indianapolis Pacesetter on it. Bill Holland, Indy winner 1949, has carefully parted his whitening hair in the middle and is immersed in the sea, selling champion chassis and motors and parts in his job as Eastern sales representative and warehouse manager. As the day wears upon him, he will change to a sports jacket and find total anonymity to the relief of those who know what he was and what he did in 28 years of racing. The noise in the room intensifies as the geeks qualify, and there is a wretched odor of boy and meatballs and smoke. It is hard to breathe and even harder to see. The pros who qualified first are out back in the parking lot, lounging against cars and expressing ineffable contempt for those inside. At lunch, they are saying things like, "It is a professional sport. If you have a contract with the manufacturer, you can make about 10 grand. I know that for a fact," Von Ahrens. And in a bright and refreshing moment of self-deprecation and amusement with his own activity, I am the old pro. I am the Don Garlitz of slot car racing. How are you, Sainer? And sadly, it's going to take a lot of time. I don't know any full-time driver who is really making a living at it, but there are a lot of drivers who do compete for money and who travel a lot and race from coast to coast. Sometimes they don't make all their expenses, but I remember doing that in automobile racing too. Bill Holland. It is even more painful to hear him say the drivers have to have the same skills as those at the Speedway. Wayne Williams thinks of himself as Joe Bonnier, but he would like to identify with the driver who makes the most money. Jerry Brady talks about the bonus system he gets from Dine and Rewind. $25 for making the main, $100 for winning plus the purse. His salary of $75 a week. Like most, Brady is a student. Except he isn't in school just now. Jerry Brady would like to be Graham Hill. Soooooo-krus would like to be Soooooo-krus. Mike Morrissey, Soooooo-krus' own Boswell and editor of Model Car Journal, ran a 36-point banner in July. Soooooo-krus wins the big one. This was the race we had all been wishing for since the early days of slot racing. Never before had any race anywhere had such a collection of racing talent, and it was the incredible John Soooooo-krus who pulled it off. It unquestionably placed him at the top of the #1 driver in the entire world. Model Car Journal is now Model Racing Journal and reorganized, but still with the enthusiastic Morrissey in the slot. Soooooo-krus, a Californian, started as a kid helping out at the Lions drag strip. "Yeah, I get the write-ups," he answers when you ask him if he's the highest paid pro in slot racing. Soooooo-krus is a kind of partner in Ron Muir's motor building company in San Leandro, California, across the bay from San Francisco. At 20, he gets a piece of the action, and there's a lot of action. Ron makes about 700 motors a day, says Soooooo-krus, who's the director of the company's racing division. Mura has a better sense of destiny than Champion, which only allows Holland to be a sales and warehouse manager. I go around to promote enthusiasm and to show people how fast the products will run and what equipment to use with them to get the best performance. Soooooo-krus stops and lights a cigarette in the middle of his mouth and then leaves the rest go. He travels about 3 weeks out of the month. It grows you up fast, he says of the sociological phenomenon of the 17-year-old professional. Next year, when he turns 21, he can envision himself with a Can-Am ride if somebody offers it. What's so strange? He knows all about the pressure, and he's a professional. Besides which, he's a Californian, and to a Californian, anything is possible. It figures that the villain will win, or at least Soooooo-krus, but at the end of a day which doesn't end, it's octogenarian Chris Vitucci, the 26-year-old phenomenon, the old bull not yet ready to play dead for the fierce young lion, who wins it all. The rest shrug and get ready for Los Angeles next weekend, and then Mexico City. Howard Usainer and Wayne Williams don't think they'll go. It comes as a happy, if tentative, affirmation that these two of the brightest, most pleasant, and skillful of the pros are beginning to choose to rejoin society. Maybe Von Ahrens won't go either. They are all relaxing in the parking lot. Von Ahrens, a splendid study in green patched trousers, green velour shirt, green teeth. Everyone is casually watching the evening jets from the coast holding in their lazing patterns over Netley. Through the soft evening and the descending darkness, the Iceman is holding court. It used to be, he says, I couldn't wait to get on a plane. When I was a kid, I loved the feel of that giant machine. When this all started, you look at the flash of the red identification lights above, sliding down into Newark, LaGuardia, and Kennedy. Now I can't wait to get off one. And then you remind yourself, Usainer is 19 years old.